Okay, so let's take a look at how we can test the ICU medical infusion pump using an iPhone or an iPad. In this case, we're going to use the iPad because it's much easier to see on the screen when you're videotaping. But all the same functionality you're about to see on the iPad with the Pronk app is available on an iPhone as well. But we're going to walk through an IV pump test using an iOS device that is wirelessly communicating to both an IV pump analyzer, in this case the FlowTrax, and a safety analyzer, the Safety Sim, both made by Pronk Technologies. So from my iOS device, I'm going to launch the app. And from the app, the first step I want to take when I'm testing an IV pump is to go ahead and do a barcode scan directly from the iOS camera. Get the asset ID pulled into my test record at the start so that I can have that all the way throughout, all the way to my electronic record. From here, I can select the device type. In this case, it's already selected ICU Medical Plum 360. I'm going to start that test, and we're going to use the actual manufacturer checklist, detailed checklist, to run through this test wirelessly, controlling the test devices and capturing back detailed records into the iOS device. I'm going to go ahead and hit start. As soon as I hit start, it's going to start a predefined electrical safety test per the manufacturer while I walk through visual inspections and select pass-fail. So I can see the safety analyzer is running tests that are predefined, and I can see those results as they're coming through on my iPad. So I'm going to go ahead and do the label inspections, the AC mains and power cords. I'm not actually going to do any tests or visuals in this case because the video would take too long. We'll just do pass-fail for the various testing and inspection that's required other than volume and occlusion, which we will do at the end. So I'm hitting pass-fail on each of those right there on the touch screen. I can hit next step, scroll down, and pole clamp inspection and test is where I just touched. Battery inspection and replacement. Battery serviced. I could type in replaced battery, or I could use voice to text to get that in there. Move on to keypad inspection, display and indicators inspection, moving through the checklist and selecting pass-fail depending on the condition. If something doesn't pass, for example, if the display test didn't pass, I could hit the P, tap it again for a fail. We won't do that in this video, but you can select pass or fail for your record. I'm continuing to move through the checklist as I finish tests. I'm at the proximal occlusion test. The actual text guiding you through that particular test is on the iPhone or iPad screen, just like it would be on a hard copy checklist. I can walk through that test, select pass or fail. Proximal air and line test, same thing. We're displaying the exact verbiage from the service manual from the manufacturer and allowing the user to run each test individually and select pass-fail. The distal air and line test comes up next. I can select pass or fail, and then I reach the volume and occlusion testing, which we will show you next, where we're actually controlling and capturing results from the IV pump analyzer. Okay, so we're ready to perform an occlusion test using our app, controlling the IV pump analyzer and capturing results back. I've got the pump programmed for 40 milliliters per hour per the manufacturer requirements, and I'm going to set a target occlusion for the first test at 6 psi per the manufacturer. I don't have to reset the FlowTrax from the app because it's already at 0. I'm ready to start the pump. So the pump starts to deliver fluid, and I can see the FlowTrax volume right here on my iPhone or iPad. It's accumulating. You can see the pressure from the FlowTrax as well. I hit the occlude button from my iPhone or my iPad, and we can see the pressure starting to rise. In this case, the target is 6 psi. It shouldn't take more than 10 or 15 seconds for the pump to detect that pressure, as the pressure in the IV set is climbing up to 6 psi. Here we're at 4.5 psi already, So we probably got about 10 seconds before the IV pump detected the alarm. So it knows now that the IV set is occluded. It's alarming at us. We've got the peak pressure or max pressure at 5.82. I hit the capture button and I've actually got my results right there on the screen to make the determination of pass-fail. It's telling me that the max pressure was 5.82, target was 6, deviation was negative 0.18 psi. That's clearly a pass. Now, we want to stop the pump, program it for 10 psi, and hit the more button so that we can capture that second occlusion test at 10 psi. We're going to want to reset the flow tracks before we restart. So everything is zeroed and we can run that second occlusion test. So this time the target is 10. And I can change that target to 10 during the test, as long as I do it before I hit occlude. So again, the IV pump is continuing to try to push fluid. The IV set is occluded because we're electronically, wirelessly controlling the flow tracks for that occlusion. And we can see the pressure is climbing. We're at 4 psi. And as soon as it reaches close to 10 psi, the pump will detect that occlusion alarm, stop pushing fluid, and we'll be able to capture our peak or max pressure into an electronic record. We're right about 9 psi now. We can see that still climbing. 10.13. You don't get much better than that. Okay, so I go to capture. I see my max pressure was 10.13, target of 10, deviation of plus 0.13 psi. Clearly a pass. So I've completed my occlusion tests, both at 6 and at 10 psi thresholds on the IV pump. I'm ready to move on to my volume test. Okay, now that we've completed our 2 occlusion tests at 6 and 10 psi, we're going to do a volume test using our iOS app. First thing we want to do before we start is do a reset flow. Again, the iPad is controlling the IV pump analyzer as well as capturing data. I've already programmed the IV pump for 200 milliliters per hour with a 10 milliliter volume for channel A. Per the manufacturer process, I'm going to go ahead and start channel A, and we'll see that the results are already starting to get captured. While I'm doing that, I'm going to program channel B for the same rate and volume. All the while, the flow tracks is capturing the rate and volume for channel A until I switch over. So I'm doing 200 milliliters per hour for a rate and 10 milliliters for this channel as well. Start to confirm, hit yes, and we're off and running. We're 40 seconds into this and the rate is showing at 201.0 for the average flow rate. The FlowTrax is capable of doing 1% accuracy in 3 minutes or less, but oftentimes it's less than a minute with a good IV pump to be able to see what the long-term rate is going to be with the averaging algorithm that we use. So we've got the volume accumulated up to 4 milliliters. It's got to reach 20 before the pump stops. FlowTrax rate milliliters per hour is 201. Time elapsed is 1 minute 20 seconds. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of the 20 milliliters of volume to be infused. We can see our FlowTrax volumes at about 19.5. When the pump is finished delivering its 20 milliliters, we'll be able to capture those results into our electronic record. So the pump is done. I'm going to hit stop, and I've got 20.128 for volume and 202.6 for the flow rate average over time. I hit capture. I've got delivery accuracy volume 20.130, volume target of 20, deviation plus 0.6%. You don't get much better than that. With a delta of 0.13 and a rate average of 202, time elapsed 5 minutes 56 seconds. Clearly that's a passing result, so I'm going to hit the big green pass button on the screen. If for any reason I need to run an additional volume test, I can simply hit the more button and run a second volume test or a third, and that will also be captured into the electronic record. I can take a picture of the IV pump at any point during the testing if I need that objective evidence of what I was doing on the IV pump, and that also becomes a part of the electronic record. Okay, now that we've completed all of our testing of this infusion pump, we've got an electronic record that we can move in a variety of ways from our app, and we can store 1,000 records within the app as well. From the app, we can share it as a PDF and send it off in various different ways and store it in memory. We can share it as text. We can do a copy and paste, where we can go from our app to any other program and paste all of that detail into a CMMS database, a PC record, or any kind of work order. As well, these electronic records can be automatically synced back to a CMMS database.